I've been struggling for days to try to find the words to express how I feel about the Trump deal, because my feelings are so like profoundly conflicted. Um, when this airs on Monday, it looks like the remaining Israeli hostages and the bodies of the dead hostages will be returned. This is a kind of catharsis for Jews, for me, that is really one of the most profound and powerful things that I think I will have ever experienced in my life. This entire experience of Jewish solidarity over the last 2 years has been extraordinary. I mean, it really has been one of the most powerful manifestations I've ever seen of this, phrase that people use a lot, Kol Yisrael Ahavim Zeh Bazeh, that all Jews are responsible for one another. I am kind of in awe of the people in my synagogue and that I see around New York who I see have been wearing dog tags to remember the hostages every day. I hear stories about people who have had a place at their table for a particular hostage now for the last 2 years. In my tiny way, I've had the names of the hostages on my refrigerator door. We prayed for them every week. I mean, this has been incredibly, incredibly powerful. It's been one of the most powerful Jewish experiences of my life. And I want to think tomorrow as those hostages are coming home and think about the Trump deal only through that vein, only through this vein of Jewish solidarity, us as a small, often brutalized, persecuted people who have learned and in accordance with our traditions to really care for one another, to care for one another. And there's so many people who have manifested that stuff that so powerfully. And to see the joy of those families returning their loved ones, and to see the way that people rally around them in this moment and rally around those who don't have loved ones who are coming back is I wish I could just stop there. I really wish that that would be the end of my message. And I thought a lot about just saying that, because I know that there are a lot of people who think that people on the left, like me, who criticize Israel, we don't feel those things. And I know for me, it's not true. I feel them like they're some of the most profound feelings I feel. But we're also being told that the Trump deal is should be a cause of celebration for Palestinians, right? Again and again, I'm seeing on social media people taunting pro-Palestinian activists. Why aren't you celebrating? You claim this is a genocide. Why aren't you celebrating? Don't you realize you're unhappy because all you want is for Israel to be blamed. Now that actually something as good is happening to Palestinians and Israel, you can't recognize that. But this isn't a day of celebration for Palestinians because it's not fair to ask Palestinians to celebrate simply for not being bombed, right? The standard should be higher than that. Yes, it is, of course, a terrific thing that the bombs hopefully will stop, at least for a while, that Palestinians will get more food in. But if we see Palestinians as full human beings, we have to understand that the bar is a little bit higher than that. How dehumanizing is it to suggest that Palestinians should leap for joy in celebration simply because a genocide may be ending and they're returning to a state of apartheid? A state that, as even Israel's own human rights organizations have stated, a situation of blockade. I mean, look at what we know about the Trump deal. It offers no path for Palestinians to gain citizenship, the most basic fundamental right that all human beings deserve, the right to be a citizen of the country you're in. And beyond that, Israel is now, in the first phase of the Trump plan, Israel sits on 53% of Gaza. And in the second phase, if this Arab stabilization force comes in, it will it'll go to 40% of Gaza. I think, based on what I'm reading, it's very unlikely that this deal will ever go to the third phase, in which Israel would control 15% of Gaza. It would still mean that Palestinians will have less access to Gaza than they had before. But I don't think Palestinians are going to get 85% of Gaza because the third withdrawal requires Hamas to demilitarize, which even Israel's own security forces don't think will happen. So it seems to me the very likely outcome of this is that Palestinians are basically going to be on 60% of the Gaza Strip. This was already one of the most overcrowded places on earth. It was declared unlivable by the United Nations before October 7th. My friend Mohammed Shahada said that everyone he knew growing up in Gaza before October 7th contemplated suicide because of what it was like to live every day in what Human Rights Watch called an open-air prison. And now it's been bombed to absolute rubble. The UN says there's 17,000 unaccompanied children there. There is no prospect really of Gaza being made livable. Yes, more humanitarian aid may come in. There may be better quality tents, but Israel will control all access in and out. And there's very little prospect based on past Israeli behavior that Israel is going to allow in the heavy duty construction that would be allowed Gaza to truly rebuild, because Israel will claim that those are dual use items that could be used for weapons, as Israel has claimed for a long time. So to tell Palestinians that they need to celebrate that their lives are worth so little that they should be jumping for joy simply because they may not be killed by a bomb tomorrow, that doesn't recognize Palestinian humanity, doesn't recognize that Palestinians are human beings created equal in the image of God, equal to everybody else. And that's why it seems to me I can't see this deal and what will happen tomorrow only as a celebration, as profoundly as it matters to me that we as a people begin to heal as Jews and that our hostages are returned. I simply do not believe in Judaism as a purely tribal creed in which we think only for ourselves and demand and expect that other people deserve less. That's not Judaism to me. Judaism is based on this profound and remarkable tension between the idea that we have a special relationship with God and the idea that God sees all human beings as being equal in the image of God. So yes, I will be celebrating and perhaps crying tomorrow along with so many other people when we see these hostages come out. But I'm not going to get up here and say that Palestinians should be thrilled to live under permanent subjugation in a hellhole without the basic necessities of life and without freedom, which they deserve just as much as everybody else.